to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. On the show today, Kirsten McCoy and Laura Buchner join me. They are the principals of Meadowbank Designs in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. The big topic on the show is how their firm was founded in 1982 by Penny Steele and how they purchased it in 2005. You'll hear these ladies talk about how they met each other at Drexel University, where they completed their master's degree in interior architecture and interior design, and how they went on to work for Penny. There are many lessons in this show. They include the value of working with a profitable, successful firm before venturing out on your own, and also the value of being a generous principal in teaching your junior designers how to handle themselves, how to handle your clients, and giving your juniors wings and space to grow. There is another lesson here that Kirsten and Laura learned, a business lesson that they are sure to point out to you so that if you ever decide to buy someone else's company, you can be prepared. Listen in for that. Now, before I get to the show, have you heard that Kravet completely revised and relaunched their website? Yes, they did. It's all up and running. It's all bright, shiny, and new. Now, Kravet, Lee Joffa, and Brunswick and Fee are all in one place. They have new and easy-to-use search features, and if you want more of the story behind the collection, you can explore the new editorial blog, Inspired, for a behind-the-scenes look at everything that Kravet has to offer. Now, the other thing is, previously, our podcast code was good for just curatedkravet.com purchases, but now it's good for a discount on any one order of Kravet fabric, trim, and wall covering. Okay, are you hearing me? I need to make sure you're listening, because if you're not using curatedkravet.com, which, by the way, I can't even talk about that. That's crazy pants. But I know you are buying Kravet fabric, trim, and wallpaper. I mean, I know that, okay? So now you can get 10% off any one purchase of your Kravet fabric, trim, and wallpaper. Use the code AWDB10. Okay, it stands for A Well-Designed Business 10, right? AWDB10. All right, be sure to use your code and get 10% off any Kravet fabric, wall covering, or trim. All right, let's get to the show. Hey, Kirsten. Hey, Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, Luann. It's Kirsten.
How are you?
Hi, Luann. It's Laura.
Hi, guys. Okay. So here's what's fun. First of all, I want to share that Kirsten and I met in Philadelphia when Kravet celebrated the opening of their new showroom in the Philadelphia Design Center, which is really good for you guys right down in that area. I understood you guys needed desperately a new design center, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So last September, I went there for that opening, and I met you, Kirsten, there, and we started chatting, and, and what's funny is, I don't know that you know this, but you and I started chatting, and right away, I was like, oh my goodness, this is a smart lady, and when I meet smart people, I'm like, I got to get them on the show. And then you were talking about that you have this partnership with Laura, and a little bit about that, and that intrigued me more. And then what was funny is, I don't know if I ever told you this, but after that, at least 2 or 3 people that I met at the Philadelphia showroom, other designers, colleagues of yours, messaged or emailed me and said, if you're looking for guests, Kirsten and Laura are good people to interview. They have a really nice business. So I don't know if I ever shared that with you. So
Thank you.
Yes. So, and of course, so we do have friends in common down there. We have Maria Viola Cutroff, right?
Yes.
Yep. And then my friend Kathy Hinckley Vance, who is the rep for Dorley and Robert Allen. I went to high school with her, and she's your rep down there,
she's
right?
The best. That's right. I know.
Exactly. So, okay. So here we are. And I think what's interesting is that we've been doing shows every couple of weeks on husband and wife teams. And of course, you're not husband and wife, but you are a partnership team. And that has
work wives.
Yeah, that's right. Work wives, right? And that does come with some challenges and benefits as well. But the other thing that's so interesting about your business, the two of you, is that you purchased the business from the principal that you guys worked for at the business at Meadowbank Design. And so that's a very interesting story in there, because a lot of designers would have your skill sets. You guys are both graduate students of interior design. You both had worked under this interior designer and had the experience of working at a high-level firm that was doing high-level projects. So when your principal was thinking about retiring, I think a lot of designers might just think, why should we pony money up for this? We'll just let that close and we'll just open up and it'll just be us. But you had some very specific reasons and conversations between the two of you that you looked at each other and decided to do this. So who wants to start and tell us a little bit about maybe Laura, do you want to start and tell us a little bit about how, because you were working there first and then you invited Kirsten to come and work with you and Penny, right?
Yes. I mean, Kirsten and I have met, we went to grad school together and graduated together from Drexel. So we were already friends, and I was working for Penny through Meadowbank Designs right out of grad school. And Kirsten was working for a woman who did similar work, like residential high end. And, just because we were friends, we were always talking about our jobs and stuff. And Penny had landed a few different new jobs, but she was kind of had one foot out the door, was about ready to retire, that kind of thing. And so we needed somebody else, and I recommended Kirsten, originally just thinking it was kind of a way for us to see, hey, someday maybe if we do want to open up our own firm, do we work well together? And Kirsten agreed, luckily. And then about a year or two later, after working with Penny, although like I said, she was definitely living in Florida half the time and
golfing a little more than working.
Yeah, which was great though, because there's many reasons why that was good. But anyways, so she was ready to retire, and luckily we got an agreement together and were able to take over the business kind of really almost seamlessly, as far as, keeping the clients and keeping the work going and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, the thing is with me working for somebody else, and I've always been really interested in how other designers work and how their businesses run, and of course that's how I found your podcast, and just very curious about how we're doing and what does somebody else do. So knowing what I knew that the practice that Penny had was really special because of the clientele, because of the wonderful work she's doing. I think as we're discovering through your podcast, so many designers who maybe work alone or, years ago, it was so behind closed doors. Nobody wanted to share information. Nobody, you're just sort of on your own and not sure what you're doing. And so to see other designers and working for other designers who could do better or just could sell themselves better or, just, I don't know, how, get better clientele or really interesting projects. Penny had that. She was always a real, like a saleswoman, but a wonderful person, and just such a networker, and just really built relationships with people, and had a phenomenal clientele and loyal, and of course nicely deep pocketed. But just we knew coming together, Laura and I, that we would not get this kind of clientele going out on our own. We had it, and thankfully Penny was very much a delegator and a team player, and really loved when Laura and I would step up, and was very open to our ideas and doing new things. And she really handed us the reins. She loved if we would take over, or a client had an affinity for one of us, and it just sort of organically grew. It was like, great, she can go play another round of golf. And she, so
don't forget to turn the lights off, girls.
You're right.
And so it was a very organic, quiet transition because we were already working with the clients and it was going seamlessly. So we knew we would not get this kind of business anywhere else. And thankfully with Penny's training, we had such a great business model to work from.
Okay, so what you're saying is that, you're smart enough and savvy enough, the two of you, to recognize a couple of inherent things, that this is a well-run firm, that it's not, it's funny because I often say to people, if you don't have a business process, if you don't have a system process, you really are stretching the letter of the definition of the word business. You tend to have a U and rather a business, because a business can be sold. A you cannot be sold. So many sole proprietors and solo entrepreneurs, everything's in their head. It's, this is how I do everything, but it's in my head. And then when it comes time to train or sell, it's this big monster thing. And so what you're describing is that all along, on her own, Penny had recognizable systems and processes, but that she always involved you guys in them, and so you understood how they worked and why they worked. And then more than that, it sounds like that she had no problem putting you with FaceTime with clients. So it wasn't like you were back at the office and she was the face of the firm. You each were having meaningful interactions with the clients. Is that correct? Am I hearing that correctly?
Right.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she really would, she would kind of start it off, but she's a wonderful person and was so genuine and kind, and people just loved her. She was like a ray of sunshine. And so even our clients, we would go to a meeting and she'd say, oh, well, you really want to work with Laura. I mean, Laura is just so smart and she just has all this background from Drexel and she's brilliant and blah, blah, blah. And you don't want me, you want Laura. I mean, she's so funny about it. And so people were more than happy to do what she said.
Well, you know what? And the truth is, when the principal says that about their team members, it is a good reflection on the principal as well. I mean, sometimes people are afraid to give credit away because they feel like, oh, I'm supposed to be looked at as the one who knows everything. But really, you are to be looked at the person who is so skilled to bring together the team that knows everything together as a team. And because if a person can do that with their team members, then the assumption can start to be made, and you can start to paint the picture to your clients that I bring that same philosophy to gathering my team of vendors, right?
Right.
I love it. And meanwhile, she's women are growing and you are standing up and you are handling projects more and more from beginning to end, and really not just like, well, I know this part of the business, but I don't know that part.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and knowing that this was actually, this sort of deal was brought to her because she was thinking of retiring by her accountant. Her accountant looked at this business and said, you could consider selling it, and she had never given it a thought. And so this is kind of how this came about, is when this was put out there. Laura and I thought, well, we could be those people. Like, why not us? I mean, we were so invested in it, and just recognized this great opportunity that I think that made us work all the more harder at it.
So was it the sort of thing that the idea was presented as an idea? When you said made us work all the more harder, did you meaning once you would have ownership, or it was sort of, there might be a time that I could see retiring and possibly putting the business up for sale, and if you girls want to think about being, first, hat in the ring, that could happen. So was it like that, or was it you just meant once you owned it, you would be more, like happy to do your gabillion hours a week?
You go ahead, Laura.
Oh, that's okay. I would say it was the first description. I mean, she definitely put it out there, and then she kind of went to Florida for 6 months and kind of watched us,
let's see
from
what
afar,
they do with
I
this.
think. Yeah, exactly, and kind of made sure that we knew what we were doing, and obviously we checked in with her regularly and that kind of thing, since it was still her business. But I think it was just sort of a natural thing that almost happened with the clients, at least. I think the clients just, even once we did finally sign the contracts with Penny, there wasn't a big announcement. We were, just continued on with what we were doing. Obviously, it wasn't a secret. I mean, certain people knew, and if someone were to ask us, it's not like we would lie or anything.
Right.
It wasn't like this big announcement, like Penny's gone, we're here, and because we didn't want to lose anyone. We and Penny to pay her back for the business. We're relying upon these clients staying. So. Right. She also had a vested interest in that as well, because Kirsten and I couldn't afford to just buy it outright for what she wanted to sell it for. But I think she knew that we would never get like a loan from a traditional bank for a business of goodwill, because the bank would say, well, what kind of contracts do you have with these clients? And,
right. They're one-off contracts.
Goodwill contracts. Yeah. It's called not a real one. Right. Yeah, in the sense of how long they're going to stay and how much they're going to spend and that kind of thing. So, we needed her to help us and continue to be somewhat available for clients even after we signed the contracts. I mean, we were relying upon
send clients our way. I mean, she'd be down in Florida, and one of her
still
friends
be a
up
rainmaker.
Here. Yeah. Oh yeah, like a lot of people from Philadelphia go to Florida, and that she would have friends down there, and I want to talk to you about my house. Oh well, you need to call Laura and Kirsten, and they're going to take care of you. I mean, it worked out for both of us, both sides. It had to be a win-win.
So now when we think about that now, so she floats the idea, she puts the carrot out there and sees if anybody's interested in it. And then she's away for the 6 months and you guys are starting to talk back and forth. And now it comes time to say, okay, if you were going to sell, what would it be? And what happens then? Is it like that where you're like, okay, we're serious. How much is it? And then you just go, okay, now we have to stand up again and think about that. Or did she tell you from the beginning what the number would be, so you were ruminating on the number the whole time?
I would say it was more once she had decided that we were good contenders to sell the business to, which took 6 months to a year after she had kind of moved halfway to the Florida. And then really it was, she had her personal lawyer. My father is an attorney, so he helped us just to kind of make sure that all the language was, appropriate and, no one was getting ripped off or any of that kind of thing. It was always done very, friendly among the three of us. But at the same time, though, it is a contract and you're still a lot of money. And so you have to be careful. And so her lawyer and she based it upon earnings over the last 3 years, which is typical of how you'd sell a business. I think where a little bit of the, what's the right word? When you're a little nervous about it is, like I said, it's that goodwill, because on paper, even though she had done great, you're relying upon this continued services that we're going to provide for clients. So
Laura's dad thought we were a little crazy at first.
Yeah. Well, I think he was just worried his daughter might, go bankrupt, but luckily
and to put it into perspective, tell us how much it costs to buy the business, because if it's $10,000, we're like, oh, poo, Dad, it'll be fine, but it wasn't. Tell us what it was.
Well, basically, we had it worked out in a contract so that Kirsten and I each had to put $25,000 down, kind of like blood money, I guess. We both luckily own small homes in Philadelphia and were able to get some equity and write her that check to put the contract into force. And then
we were just out of grad school. We had no money.
Right.
Yeah. And then basically we had 3 years to pay off a note to her that was through the earnings of the company, and then a way to kind of keep her goodwill involved, she got a percentage of royalties on top of that, like 80%, I think, or something it was. But
like net profit or something.
Yeah, but basically in the end, over the 3 years, it was about $1 million that went to her.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
But it was, like I said, but we did have a salary during that time. I mean, it wasn't a ton, but it was what we were accustomed to. So it's not like we took a huge hit or hardship and mainly just because the company luckily stayed rolling and kept, her paid. If, I mean, obviously there were different ways that the contract said if we weren't able to pay her and different things, but
Like both sides really wanted it to work out.
Yes.
And Penny's such a mother figure to us still today that she was very understanding and would never just pull the rug out from under us. And I mean, she really wanted it to work too. And it was kind of a little bit of an experiment. Like, you know what, let's do this, and if it doesn't work out, we'll deal with it. You know,
Right,
I mean, she was very gracious that way.
Well, and I'm going to say, not her mother figure and graciousness withstanding. I mean, and not negating that. In other words, I'm sure those things are true, but in a very real, practical sense, she needs you to succeed so that she gets her payout, because 50 grand versus 1 million is a heck of a lot of a difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the only thing she's guaranteed is 50 grand. Now, of course, notwithstanding contracts and everything else, but like blood from a stone, let's be real. Okay, I'll pay you $5 a month for the rest of my life till I get to $1 million, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, so, you know, so it is awesome that she sounds like an outstanding person, let alone business person. But there is also a very selfish and self-serving, and rightfully so, reason that she is invested in you being successful. And it's funny because we had an opportunity with Window Works at one point, and I remember my husband and I looking at each other, and we were just like, if this partnership, whoever these people that were interested, purchased our business, we would have to help them so much, because they were first of all outside strangers. So it wasn't like coming in, like what she knew you could do it. She, like you said, she did that 6-month test period, but we just thought, we're going to end up helping so much to make sure they pay us off that we may as well just keep the business and keep the money. You know what I'm saying? You know, like that's not good. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's nice. And I mean, and it's like you said, a win-win for both sides.
Right. I mean, really, on paper, it was not a great deal, but all the parties involved had to be kind of committed to this. That was really the only way it was going to work. It was not your typical business purchase. You know?
And then how about speak to that a little bit? Because I'm hearing it, that the two of you were given adequate face time with clients so that there was no drop in confidence when a client would finally go, wait, I'm 3 months into my project with you and I haven't seen Penny. Oh, right, we bought it from her. So, you know, the people weren't going to go away because the project was going on. They did a project with you 2 years ago, maybe, and you were worked on it, right? So, but you just said there on paper, it didn't really look like a great deal, and that, Laura, your dad was a little like, you guys are nuts. So what else happened in there? Was there a moment of intuition? Was there a gut check? Was there something where you just went, you know, what was the thing that made it so that the two of you just looked at each other and said, we're going to do this?
Well, I think we knew we'd worked together long enough that we knew we could work together. This is really what we both wanted ultimately. You know, we connected in school. We would talk about what we wanted for our futures, and this was it. I mean, it was just a great situation, great location to be in, you know, geographically. It's you know, we knew we could make it work because it seemed to be working. Like you said, she was giving us these clients, we're managing it, and we were kind of getting better and better. Like, you know what? I think we can do this. It was just really fear that would stop anybody, you know, and we knew that if we had enough of a, let's call it an out, like we weren't going to go to jail if we couldn't pay her, then, you know, why not? Like, this seems to be okay. And Penny was equally as encouraging. She was very open with the books. And, you know, I remember sitting at her dining room table and she was showing us these tax returns saying, this could be you. This is a good thing. Like, I really think you guys should consider it. So she was very, you know, massaging it in that way. Like I said, she's a good salesperson, but she was really encouraging, and we're ready to take the leap. You know, if we could make this initial payment, we felt like we're going to do it.
Well, and the numbers to pay her back, I mean, royalties are royalties, but even just off the note, which is what the main thing was, you know, the numbers for the last 3 years supported that we could do this.
Okay.
So it's not like
was
it was
completely
just some
absurd
number
right.
like, oh, we're going to have to get 10 more clients to make this work. It was more of, if we continue on the path it's been going, we should be fine.
Right. So there was a rational element to it. Of course there was. I mean, you don't spend $1 million without a rational element in there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But that was one of the benchmarks for you. It was like, we really, if we exceed what the firm has done in the last 3 years, gravy, good on us. But if we, at minimum, just continue what we've been doing, and with the goodwill and the rainmaking combined with her, she's not going to take her rainmaking away. And you guys are going to keep doing the work that you were already doing, most of it sounds like, anyway. So it's okay. But there is that moment that it's a do it or a don't moment. Right? There's a do it or a don't moment, and you can't wait until that moment doesn't have fear, because you always have, don't you? Do you agree?
Sure,
right?
Sure. Yeah. And usually the right thing, the exciting thing is when you have fear. I've learned that.
Yeah.
You got to jump in sometimes.
Well, and that is part of being an entrepreneur, right? Is that little element of being able to stomach the risk.
Leap of faith.
Right. And you do everything you can, like you girls did, to analyze and evaluate and everything else. But ultimately, it is always just, I'm going to do this because I'm deciding to do it.
Right. I mean, and we don't want to kid you. It wasn't all roses the first year. We had a pretty rude awakening with a new thing, a tax burden that was.
Oh, what happened?
Oh, Laura, I'll let you handle that.
Well, it was one of those things that unfortunately no one seemed to pick up or warn us, and Penny definitely wasn't aware either, but and obviously, I guess our advice would be to, if you're buying a business, to definitely check into this. But yeah, after the first year, basically all the earnings, because Kirsten and I were now the two 50% shareholders of an S Corp, all of the money that we were paying on Penny's note, which she was paying personal taxes on as well, all of that money was flowing through us on our K-1s. So it was showing up that we were making, our salaries, which were about 50 at the time, plus each half of what we paid Penny, which was also royalties and all that kind of stuff. So Kirsten and I both had a tax bill that first year after buying the business of, more than what our salary was, basically.
Because basically, from what you're describing, Laura, if I understand it, is what you're describing is from a legal standpoint, as far as the tax structure was concerned, that all of the monies that were paid to Penny was income to each of you.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like
yes.
Through us.
Surprise.
Whoa.
Yeah, even though you see that money, of course.
Right.
But...
Well, that's just it. It's not like, giving out allowance to Penny. It's like it came in, it went out. You never saw it. It wasn't like you could decide to not have given it to her. But it was perceived from a legal standpoint, it was your profit. It was your income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whoa. And we luckily worked it out with Penny, and she was able to loan us some money, which helped, which definitely helped us pay it. And then
a non-traditional deal. I mean, you couldn't do that with a bank. Penny felt so bad. She was like, she didn't even think of it either, and she was like, we're going to work this out. I mean, she was just so gracious, so wonderful.
That's amazing.
Because she was still so involved in that, wanting this to work. She was like, I will loan you this money back. So of course we had to kind of tack that on to the note.
Yeah, exactly.
And you take it as income again. Awesome.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The only person who made out and all that is the state and the federal government. They made taxes on it coming and going and coming back again.
Definitely.
So, word to the wise, it can be a great situation, but you just have to be aware. I mean, we were so naive to that, and it just was not caught, or people involved, accountants and attorneys just maybe assumed we knew this, and we just had no clue.
That's a tough thing, because here you are in the hands. And like you said, one is your father. Not that he was the accountant, but he's the lawyer. And I don't even know if we can have any expectation that a lawyer would know that. But the point is that you guys are interior designers, right? Like, I mean, let's be real. You're hiring professionals to help you through this. And, you know, it's sort of like a homeowner hiring an interior designer, and the designer says, oh, I didn't know about that part. And, you know, and you need this in your kitchen too. It's like, what? If you don't know, who knows?
Exactly.
So that's a pretty scary little thing, but you weathered it, it sounds like, again. And of course that was, you know, evidence of the goodwill of Penny. I can't imagine what would have happened if she was not. And of course, again, she's invested in it working, but that is a little above and beyond the call of duty there. You could perceive and maybe construe that as a little bit extra, you know.
Absolutely.
But I don't know what you would have done.
I mean, there are avenues, because I've asked people about, like, what if she hadn't been able to or something like that. And I mean, there are different ways, I think, that you can set up, you know, payment plans with the IRS. Of course, we would have ended up paying much more, I'm sure.
We would have saw your picture on the post office, you think?
Exactly. I mean, probably could have figured out a way to deal with it, when luckily it was easier because of her. But
take pity on poor stupid people.
Well, and even that, like, you're right. You probably would have figured out a way to stay out of jail and to do it and everything else. But, you know, any conversation with the IRS, I mean, be serious. Who wants to have it, right? Like, you just don't.
And I tell you, Luann, I think we got this information like April 14th. I mean, I kid you not. It was panicked.
I broke out in hives, I remember.
Did you really? I can imagine. That's a serious thing. And that is the whole thing about ownership. Well, go ahead.
I wasn't even engaged to my husband yet, and actually, I think we got engaged like I think a week after. Are you what?
Honey, look at the great package I am. I even come with even more debt. Oh my goodness! But that is the crux of entrepreneurship, isn't it? Is the buck stops with you, whether it's you know about it, you don't know about it, you plan for it, you didn't plan for it. It does stop with you, and it really doesn't matter that it's April 14th. It's a real thing, and it's your responsibility, and you have to figure out a way out of it. And that's you know, that's a lesson for any of the designers that are listening to us today that work for someone else. And, you know what it is when sometimes, not you girls, you seem to appreciate it, but sometimes people who work for other people forget the things that happen that aren't just the design side facing. They don't really understand the things that you face as a business owner, and that if they were to be upset one day, they could just walk out the door. And it doesn't matter how upset we get as principals. You ain't walking out of any doors. Not without taking care of your stuff, right?
Right.
So true.
So that's awesome. Okay, very good. So now tell us about your business. Tell us about some of the systems and the way that you project manage that you learn from Penny and that you do yourselves that make it such a successful business that you were able to support. I mean, we have, listen, this. We have designers listening that don't have outstanding debt and don't have to pay off $1 million over 3 years, and that are legitimately struggling to be profitable. So tell us some of the things that you girls have learned. You don't mind I keep calling you girls, do you?
No,
Should I be calling you women?
Makes us feel younger.
I don't mean it any way other than endearing, not as condescending, I promise. But sometimes I just catch myself. I'm like, Leanne, what are you doing?
We love it.
Okay, good. But tell us some of the things now, transition us into actually the running of this really successful business that not only, provides a living for you two, but enabled you to pay off this big note over what is really a relatively short period of time for that kind of money. So there must be good systems and practices in your project management, your outreach, and your client interaction.
Well, it's true. I'll like I was mentioning before, that Penny had a very fruitful clientele. I mean, just amazing clients, not to mention just some of the nicest people around. We're just so lucky. And I knew that coming from another business, how great this was, almost rare. You don't want to just say deep pockets, but that's just part of it. But Penny was very much a networker in terms of she wanted to stay in the good graces of architects, contractors. She really appreciated all the people that worked on a job, the craftsmen, fabricators, all kinds of people. So that's just part of it. But she was very aware of wanting to always be taken professionally, because a lot of these big architects, she wanted to have someone on staff who knew how to do drawings or knew how to do AutoCAD. I mean, she didn't have those skills, coming, from where she came from. And so she was always she was an early adopter of Design Manager. Lots of designers, were still typing things on typewriters and things like that. And she was an early adopter of some of this sort of technology, if you will, for designers. And that was really important to her, to be taken seriously by other people in the industry, not just a designer who writes something down on a napkin or has a random 60 yards of fabric sent to their drapery workroom. I mean, she was very much about being efficient. She came from a family that sort of ran businesses or had a business. And so she was very business minded, which is, as you know, kind of rare with creative people sometimes. And I'm just speaking for myself, coming from other firms, whereas Laura had only worked for Laura. I came from other firms where I was like, oh my gosh, this is huge. This is amazing.
You knew the difference of a well-run firm versus a firm that was, maybe talented like up to gig, but right.
But not efficient in terms of where you spend your time. Like, why do you want to type up 3 pieces of paper for something that's one click of a button in Design Manager, or something? It's like, this is not a good use of our time. And Penny was very much about maximizing her value to clients, and that's a big thing.
Right. And I would say, go ahead. Oh, sorry. I'd say one other thing too, like from a business standpoint, is Penny, before I even worked for her, was a huge High Point attender. Like, she would go to market, she would get accounts with these companies that, the 40% off the design center was not enough for her. I mean, obviously she would work with, fabric companies at design center, but when it came to furniture and carpets and all kinds of stuff, she really promoted Meadowbank for that with buying power. And luckily we inherited all of those accounts. Obviously we've added a lot more since she's been here and or changed and moved on to different ones. But that really helped, especially back in the day, not as much now with the internet and everything and people shopping, but definitely even still, like, we really can, with our accounts, when it comes to the decorating part of jobs, be as competitive as a large, high-end retail store that's offering a sale, for instance. Whereas, so for us, markup is still a big part of how we make money. And luckily, even if clients are shopping, for the most part, we're usually in line or sometimes even less, which is hard to do. So, as much as, it's funny, we were at High Point last spring, and I remember walking around going, oh, I'm so glad we bought this business, because if I had to seriously walk around here and open up all these counts on my own, I wouldn't even have time to do design work. Which is understandable why, lots of designers don't do it and just go to stores, because it's so time consuming. And so many relationships on top of your clients, it's with vendors and, reps, which are, great, but it's just time consuming and that kind of thing. So, but she really made that a big profit center for Meadowbank, on top of, the consultation type fees.
So can we pick that apart a little bit? Because that's a hot topic now, is this whole, you just said that a good part of your revenue comes from markup. And so are you guys expressing to me that it almost sounds like, and I really am questioning it, it almost sounds like that Penny was savvy in that maybe she would go and open up an account with a particular vendor, but that she pressed for the deepest discounts that she could get, or she just did the most searching for the best, the vendors that gave the best discounts. Like, it almost sounded like there was something there more than just opening up trade accounts.
Right. No, I think she definitely searched for the bigger, deeper discounts. Like, she wasn't satisfied with just calling the local store and getting the typical trade discount like that you would get at Pottery Barn or something.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
She definitely, I mean, like I said, she went to High Point for years before I even worked for her, which has been, gosh, I don't know, 16 years ago or something when I first started working for her. And,
Wow.
you know, she was always, which was rare. I mean, even when Kirsten and I go about once a year, you know, obviously we run into designers and, you know, because we're not necessarily buying that much there. We're really just checking it out for potential clients. And we might buy a few things, but we're not like a store that's buying inventory.
Right.
Even still, like we tend to be kind of a small percentage, I think, that are there. It seems like there's not a ton of designers, especially at least in our area, that go truly to, you know, see what's out there, see what's new, potentially get, you know, or at least, you know, have a relationship with those reps. Because it's like I said, that's part of the business, but it is time consuming. So it's, you know, it's a catch-22, like as far as what is important. But Penny spent a lot of time on it, so luckily we can just sort of foster those relationships and keep them going.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I'll add too is that Penny was also, she had a lot of nice designer friends that, you know, of her own, her peers, and they would start a so-called consortium where, let's say there was a huge opening order, $15,000 or something, they would pool their orders to make that minimum and share those accounts, some of them.
Wow.
And that has kind of changed. I think it got a little complicated, and, you know,
That
you know,
fizzled out a while
we've
ago.
done it with our friend Maria, who was on your show. I mean, it's sort of like, you know, you can use our discount if you want, and, you know, it helps our minimums and all that. But she was smart about that. And the other thing is, the more designers I talk to who don't really realize this, are almost like afraid to talk to their reps about this or ask, that sometimes reps don't know that you're really legitimate until like they see you have an office, or they know, you know, it's like, oh, you are serious, or oh, okay. Like when they if you talk to them and kind of get to know them and tell them a little bit about your business, they have discretion to extend you certain discounts. And it's like, you know what? It's almost like, I like you guys. You know, I'm going to give you, you know, 15, 20 or something like that.
Exactly.
Like, it's sort of, I mean, it's that still works that way. They want your business, and if they like you and know that you're going to be, you know, you're a real client, they will sometimes, you know, help you out. And that has proven true for us in a lot of different cases. They like working with us. You know, we make it easy. We don't give them a lot of guff, and it just, you know, we try to preserve those relationships as best as we can.
So are you guys on do you do you have an only model? In other words, you only specify trade only resources, or do you have a mixed model of trade and retail or online resources?
You know, we do a little bit of both. I mean, you know, honestly, today, as you know, with the internet, you know, what is trade anymore aside from, you know, a Cravat or certain other firms? But, you know, we try to do a little bit of both. A lot of what we do is also custom, you know, semi-private label. Like we, you know, we're creating things that they couldn't get necessarily from a store, or don't know that they can get from a store. You know, sometimes you can buy hickory chair, but clients don't know you can customize some of that. Or so it's a little bit of both. But thankfully, we have most of our clients, and this doesn't mean that, you know, you don't have to be wealthy to do this, but most of our clients just they don't want to put it together. They don't know. They're not shopping.
They're not even bothered.
They're just so happy.
Luxury,
yeah. But I mean, they're happy to have your help. It's like, I don't know how to do this, and I want a nice house, and, you know, we can spec what we want, really, what's appropriate.
Well, and we found too, because we both do have our masters, like, but we are in residential, which is kind of rare. That's actually quite rare. But you know, we do get hired for lots of consultation things, like kitchens and bathrooms and paint consultations, and you know, built-ins and electrical. It's like, and a lot of that is not, you're not buying necessarily anything, especially if they have a general contractor or that kind of thing. So we had to obviously bill for our time for those types of things. We can't just be decorators. But at the same time, you know, we found that it's also hard for some clients to digest, if we were to double our rate to make up for the money that we're making in markup. I mean, some clients aren't making much in we're not making much in markup because it may just be pure consultation, but we had to balance it. And we found that was the best way to do it because clients do hire us for different things. We have had some jobs where it's been mostly just pure decorating and, we haven't needed as much time necessarily, but we're making more in markup, if that makes sense. So.
Okay. And then when we think about, there's a lot of discussion with the designers about the difference in the retail price and the trade price. And some designers subscribe to, I split that with my clients. Some designers say, I charge them retail, keep the whole difference. Some designers do 60-40. Some designers struggle with clients asking what their, net take home is on that product and, how are they going to do that? How are you willing to talk about how you do that?
Yeah, I mean, we propose to them in our letter of agreement that we have a sort of a dual mode of fee structure. We charge by the hour and we also charge a markup, and we're very transparent about it. We mark up 45% on most things, which is really the best margin to be making money on things. I mean, you should be doing that if you can. I don't want to say if you can get away with it. It's not a shady thing, but when we show our clients, these are the discounts we get. This is why that's still a great price, because we're truly buying wholesale. We're not just taking a 10% discount from something. We're not going above retail either. We're ethical that way. I mean, if you can shop it, that's great, but they're not coming to us to be a bargain basement, but we're very transparent. And when they see that we can actually provide value with our fees, we charge this way because you're not obligated to buy furniture from us. Right. We want to give you the best design. We're not really just in the business of selling furniture. We want to sell you a design, a beautiful room, a beautiful house. So you can walk away, basically.
Right.
We can do your designs,
right, yeah.
And God forbid somebody dies or somebody gets to whatever. They're not stuck.
Right.
So, and that's why we charge. If we only charged retail, let's just say, we wouldn't have made any money if we're waiting and working on this design, and then they walk away. I mean, we would have made nothing. So it's sort of a fair trade on how we do our business that way. If that makes sense.
Yes. And so are you saying that, let's just for argument's sake, say that something is retail $100, it's your price is $50, that you're charging $95 for that, and you're saying to your client, see, you saved $5 by buying it with us?
No, it's like, we tell them if it's 50 and 20 and how a 45% markup on that is actually puts you about $55 or something out of that $100. Right. So it's actually a pretty good deal.
Okay.
We've had people shop us. I mean, we don't often get that because, like I said, most of our clients just want it done.
Right.
They don't have the vision or something, but we try to make that transparent so they can see the value that they're getting. We want to compete, but we also are, we're Neiman Marcus. We're not,
right.
Walmart. So it's, you're coming to us for a certain kind of product.
And I have a question about this in general. And you may or may not have an answer or an opinion on it, but I just wonder what happened in the interior design industry that allowed a culture where the client can ask what your net price is on something and that you are not entitled. And for instance, you're expressing a model where you're making your 45% and you're happy about the fact that nearly on every one of these purchases, your client is still buying it less than they could if they went retail on their own for that same product. And I just wonder, what happened to the design industry that becomes normal? Like, in other words, you wouldn't go in to, a restaurant and say, I'll have a martini, please. Oh, that's $12. Right. But what did you pay for that martini? Can I give you, 25 cents over the dollar that it cost you to put that in? Like, I don't understand that. Do you understand where that happened and why as a culture? I know it is a culture. I'm not saying it's unique to you or anybody else, but I think about that because, like, in window treatments, I don't discuss with you what it net is. This is the price. Buy it or don't buy it.
Exactly. And I kind of have always, thought that myself. I think again, being designers, not necessarily business people, a lot of my friends, our peers, they're scared. Somebody asks them about price and they head for the hills. Fred Burns, who you love and I love, he's on your show. He has a great thing for price objection, like why that's a good thing. But designers hear price objection and they automatically assume, oh, I have to keep this job. I have to do what I have to do to keep this job.
Right.
No, you don't. And again, we learned that from Penny. We're not Walmart. We're Neiman Marcus.
Right.
We don't really apologize for what we are selling, but we're happy to answer that question. But we say it in a way that we understand your concern, but you have to stand firm. You have to say it in a way that's yeah, it's really expensive.
Yeah, I know. That's my line too. Yeah. Are these window treatments going to be expensive? Yes, they are.
I always try to come up with examples for my clients if they, express something like that, like about, buying a car or something. It's like, you can end up with a Honda, but I really think you're in the market for a Mercedes. It's like you would not be happy with that product. I can do that for you, and I'm happy to show this to you. But it's a little bit like, wine tasting or something. When you see these fabrics or finishes or something laid out, you can see the difference. You can see why something is more expensive, and on the internet you can't. On pictures on the internet you can't.
I just was, and the thing is, I just was more reflecting on whether it is more value conscious interior design firm or luxury interior design firm, that there is a culture in our society that thinks it's okay to ask an interior designer what their net costs are and to demand that, a lot of people come at designers and say, I want to work with you, but I only want to pay your net cost on product. And my brain just fries over that. And I get that question all the time in mastermind, in Facebook groups and so forth. And it's just like, I'm like, and I stay away from it well, first of all, they're not my Facebook groups, and they're well run by leaders, Veronica Solomon and Rachel and Dixie and Claire Jeffert, that are, rock star interior designers. So I watch those conversations. I don't take part in them. But every time I see that question by a designer that's getting on her feet and she or he is saying to the leaders of the group, what do I say when the client says, I want to see your net costs on product, or I want to pay your net costs? And they have answers, but my brain just goes, why is that? We don't do that in any other thing that we do. We don't walk into a car dealership. We don't walk into the ShopRite. We don't walk into the fishmonger. We don't walk into the shoe store. We don't walk into Saks and say, oh, that's a really beautiful dress, and I really want it. And I want you to bring it back and forth to me in the dressing room 15,000 times and bring me 9,000 sizes and everything else. And when you're all done, I really want to buy it, but I want to buy it at your cost.
It's like exactly. And I think that's the one thing that we talked about fear, and I can, I'm speaking to designers out there who have been there, and the best thing you can say is no. You would be shocked that when you say no, people come back.
Right. Takeaway.
You're so afraid to lose them. You're so afraid they're going to walk. They're going to hang up the phone in anger. No. So many times we're like, I'm really sorry. And they say, okay, okay.
I just had to try.
I mean, it's like it's a negotiation sometimes in their mind, and we have to stand firm. We don't have those margins for negotiation. We don't have that. I can't negotiate with a craftsman who's building this one of a kind thing and is making whatever he's making on it, and he doesn't have a big margin, an artist or something. Right. I can't do that. I don't have that power. And the best thing you can say is no and see what happens, because you would be surprised.
It's NO and it's silence. That's your 1-2 punch.
I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I understand if this doesn't work for you. We would love to work with you.
And then be quiet. Don't say anything else. Stop talking. Quiet. Like my mother-in-law used to say, "Stacha jit."
Yes. So that's like the first rule of negotiation.
That's it.
You've got to shut up a little bit.
Yep, that's it. So I just think it's a strange phenomenon in this business. It's crazy pants. But anyway, and so the advice really is to decide whatever you have decided as an interior designer, your method for pricing. It sounds like make yourself comfortable comfortable. It probably will change over the years as you grow from a baby designer to a more seasoned designer, right? But the idea is that whatever you establish, that's it. Just be okay with saying no. There's a couple of things that are happening there. The takeaway is a very important negotiation tactic. It's a very useful one. The silence is probably the single favorite negotiation tactic that's out there. But the other one too is let it go. And if it's yours, it's going to come back to you. So you let
like I said, everybody should look at Fred Burns's why price objections are a good thing. It's it's like a $20 podcast or something. It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's so great.
It gives you the opportunity to find out why and how you haven't gotten to there. I don't even know it. I mean, I haven't said it, but I just know why price objections are good, because then you get to the heart of, it gives you the dialogue to get to the heart of what really is going on and going to motivate that client so that you can now provide that for that client, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Price objection is actually a sign of interest.
Right, exactly, right, because just walk away is see you later. Right. Yes.
You can't control that.
Right. Right. It's funny. We just, I remember, I don't remember where I say different things, but I had that with a showroom client just a couple of weeks ago. All happy, told her the price. And she says, yeah, okay, that's great, and I've worked with her for 30 years. Okay, you know what? I have to get a Super Bowl party ready, so I'll call you next week. And I knew it's just something happened. And I just looked at her, I said, is that not the amount of money you want to spend on this project? And she just looked at me, and her shoulders literally relaxed. And she goes, it really isn't. I just didn't want to tell you. Because she has worked with me for so often, and this was a minor powder bathroom window that she in her mind came in and thought it was going to be a couple of $100. I'm coming in, you did the window before, you have the measurements, you don't even have to come out to the house. She wasn't trying to take advantage of me in any regard, but when she walked in and she said what she wanted, and I know her and I know her budget and I know everything else that's the normal about her, and she asked for a particular product, even though she was saying, oh, it's just an unimportant window, I knew that was an expensive product, but we all know that expensive isn't the same to everybody. So I priced that product for her, and that's when all of a sudden she's okay, you know what, I got to get ready for the party, I'll call you next week. And I just asked her point blank, and that's when she said, she goes, yeah, it's just, it's not about the money. It's just I didn't want to spend that much money on that window. And I said, we could do this product and it'll be half the price. And she priced it out. She goes, okay, can you come over tomorrow and measure it for me? Yep, I can. Exactly. So it's just, it's you just have to, the price objection is like you said, is valuable. It's the goodbye, no thank you. You know what I mean? That, because less seasoned salesperson would have taken her at her word that, oh, she just stopped in, the Thursday before the Super Bowl, and she really is busy, and she really will call me next week. I could tell by her face she was not. I could tell. It's like,
right.
No, she just, something was lost. What happened? Where did I go wrong? I said to myself.
It's true.
Yeah. So, okay. So, all right. So we had a little departure there on pricing and stuff, but I think it's a valuable conversation for interior designers. Yeah. Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about what's ahead actually, before we do that, I would love to ask you a little bit, share a little bit. It's clear that Penny worked very hard to attract, like you have used to describe it, the Neiman Marcus client. Can you give us some ideas and ways that you guys do that and that she did that for interior designers that are listening that are like, yeah, I just want to swim in that pool?
One of the things, and again, lots of people talk about this, lots of, sales people and things like that. So much of it is just being authentic to yourself, to, friends, to friends of friends. And when you have a good relationship, that builds. And she had good relationships with people through all kinds of avenues, whether, you have one great client, hopefully their friends are just as great, and they have, similar, they run in similar circles, something like that. I mean, that's something you have to foster. And I feel like we try to be we try to do that with our clients too, that it builds and builds and builds. Like we've been very fortunate in that way where so much of our business is still word of mouth. We try to keep up a professional reputation in our area, like I said, with architects and contractors. And, we really try to nurture that so that we can get the right clientele and that we're perceived as that design firm that will be appropriate for that certain client.
And how do you come with certain relationships built in? And that was obviously clearly one of the values that the two of you saw in buying this business. But I imagine in the years that you've owned it, you've probably developed some of your own relationships. How do you go about establishing relationships with architects and other professionals that then can be a source for clients for you?
I think one of the best things is to really be a team player. You do have to take your ego out of it, just like Penny was so generous with her time and just her whole spirit. You kind of have to do that with other contractors and architects too. I mean, be yourself, but be helpful, be of service to people, work together. Don't throw your contractor under the bus in front of your client just to show how important you are and how, I'm in charge, or that's not the right way to go about it. I mean, when you help each other out and get that good result, that goes so far, I think, in goodwill with, the people that you're working with, especially, architects or other, high-end contractors that have great client bases. It's like they want to work with people they like. I'm sure you've heard that before. People want to work with who they like.
Yes. And what you're describing is that when there's an opportunity, this is a little bit different than creating and calling on an architect for an opportunity or a contractor, but it's when there's an opportunity, whatever has come your way. Maybe the client is your entry into the project, and they already come with an architect and or a contractor. And what you're saying is in that chance, that's your chance to make an impression, not just on the client, but on those other people as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, right. And so that's well said.
Yeah. And actually a lot of Penny's projects, she was brought into the relationship because of the client, and she knew, when you have a great architect or just a really talented person you're working with, you never know where business is coming from. Treat everybody that way. It's even the people in our local showrooms, and I mean, those are valuable relationships to us. You never know where a referral is going to come from.
It's true. People often overlook the referrals from the showrooms because the showrooms are not going, just like that client was about to walk out without telling me that the product that I priced was too high for what she had in her mind. The different trades and the different showroom people are not necessarily going to say, I have an opportunity every day to refer you to somebody, but I'm not going to because you're a big pain in the butt when you come in here. You never say hi to me when you walk by me. It's funny because at the time we're talking, it's already in the can and ready to go up on the air, but I did a solo Power Talk Friday about working with your vendors. And,
interesting.
Yes, and I have been asked for almost the 2 years of the podcast by different designers that I work with and say to me, you should do a solo show and you should talk about, how you work with a vendor and the great way to be a good designer working with a vendor. And there was something that happened in a Facebook group that really I just said, okay, it's time. Let me do that. You know what I mean? But it's true. You really it is a great gift of business to be one leg of that table and to stand there and be part of a team and to deliver a product. And the more that you can foster those relationships with those other team members, the architects, the contractors, the GCs, the builders, the electricians, the plumbers, everybody, it's each project gets a little better each time because the communication grows each time and the looking out for each other grows each time, right?
Yeah. You're sort of top of mind, like I said, even an electrician, we have a guy who's kind of a one-man show who we love, we've used him for years. Penny used him before us, and great guy. And just, he's working in people's houses, and it's like, yeah, Jim, do you know anybody? And oh, you should call Meadowbank. I mean, just because
Right.
he knows how we work, he knows who we are. You
Right.
would really like them, and just that's so great. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so random sometimes. You just
Right.
don't always know, but you can't take that for granted, and that's probably a salesman thing too. Like you just never, you always it can come from anywhere.
That's right. That's right.
Hmm.
And then the last thing that I would love for you to talk about a little bit is about the way that there is a particular mindset that you need to have in order to work with the Neiman Marcus crowd. There's a way that you need to deliver customer service, and there's a way that you need to be present in your projects. Talk about that, because that's not so easy to do. It takes effort. I know it to be true. So talk about it a little bit.
Do you mean like personalities, or just in
No,
terms of?
no, no. I don't mean it from a negative. I mean, in other words, what I believe to be true is that if you want to work at the higher end market, that you must deliver excellent customer service, that you can't be like, oh, sometime next week, or, oh,
Yes.
I'm going to leave it halfway done and I'm really tired today and I'll do it tomorrow. It's, that sort of thing. But there's different things for you as designers that you might know. Oh, yes, we deliver that, or we do it this way. Talk about it, because it's a different market, the luxury market.
Yes. I mean, obviously being responsive is a big thing. Um, you know, I one of our big things, sorry, I'm talking here for Laura too, but one of the big things is just calling people back or emailing them, and and you have millennials who never want to pick up a phone or something. Sometimes just a phone call is to say nothing, like, I am really sorry, I do not have an answer for you yet, but I will get back to you. And most people are like, that's fine. Like, you might look at an email or a text and panic because it's in black and white and there's no
Hmm.
context to it. And you call up your client like, oh no, they're mad. And she's like, oh no, I was just checking off my to-do list and no
Right.
big deal. And, but you're like panicked because they asked you for this one thing. And so much of it can be alleviated by picking up the phone. They feel like they're being taken care of. I'm working on it, or I'm going to have this answer for you by Friday. That's when so-and-so is going to get back to me. Just that kind of service. You know your client best, probably, their personality. Sometimes that comes into play, is just understanding, how they are, how they work. What do they expect? I mean, I don't think you should be a doormat. I think you have to be clear about setting expectations in the beginning. Laura and I try not to answer too many things on the weekends, unless it's like our client who's like a really good friend and we know it's just a quick thing and they're not going to bug us. They're
Right.
usually apologizing, like, oh, I'm sorry to bother you on a weekend, but they're it's like a quick question. So we kind of try to set those boundaries too, and most people are really reasonable.
Mm. Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know. It's I don't know. You're right in about not reading into. I know, and it is. It's a difference in business now with everything over email and text and so forth. And it will happen at WindowWorks as well. Adrienne will be like, a designer will, oh my goodness, the designer is saying what's the status on their order, and she'll look at me. She's like, they only gave us the PO and the fabric, so 2 weeks ago. Why are they doing? I'm like, Adriana, they're actually just asking a question. They're not.
Hmm.
The question isn't inferring. Do you have a delivery date? They're
Right. Don't
actually
don't jump
just
to the negative. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And
Yeah.
she's look, the buck stops with her. She's running the
Hmm.
schedule, and she wants to be on top of things, and she wants to give answers that make people happy,
Sure.
But the thing is to separate when somebody is saying, just wondering what the status of this order is. I'm like, there's nothing there that says, and I expect the status to be it's ready. I'm just
Right.
wondering what the
Right.
status is.
Yeah, and again, it's how you manage it, I think, from the beginning. I don't mean just, how we return phone calls, but just saying, being communicating clearly with them, saying, this is how long it takes typically for this kind of thing.
Right.
And this is when this happens. And sometimes people go, oh, I had
Yeah.
no idea. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I'm glad we're having this conversation
Right.
now,
Right.
because you just want them to know truly how the process works. And that can save you a lot of the
Right.
times.
It
Be
absolutely
clear
can.
with them, and they're like, okay. People get afraid to deliver bad news. Don't promise something that you can't deliver. It's
Right.
not good for anybody.
No.
So if they
Right.
know, as long as they know, oh, I'm so sorry. This is not going to happen for your Super Bowl party. We thought it was, and it's not. They get over it. They say, oh, it's really disappointing, but okay, as long as it's not, 2 hours before the party, you
Right.
give,
You've been telling them all along,
don't,
it's maybe,
right,
absolutely no.
right. Like as designers, sometimes you get a little cynical because it's like, oh, I can't trust that this is really going to happen. And I've been burned on this before by I don't know, a vendor or whoever. You just have to prep the client, and when you do that could be a high-end client, a low-end client. It can all work the same.
Right. Awesome. I love it. Well, I think there's great lessons and takeaways in your experience there. And the last question that I would love to ask you is, do you have juniors under you that you could foresee grooming to sell this business to them at some day, or are we too early for that? You don't have that built in yet. You're too young for that.
Not yet. I think I joke I'm going to be working till I'm 95, but I think we're working towards that. We have people maybe not necessarily on staff now. I don't know if they're listening. They have to speak up if they're interested. But we have great staff. We've had staff come and go for various reasons, and good and bad, and just it's not on the radar yet because Laura and we're not even close to leaving the business. But I would totally do it if somebody was really invested, and I want to go play golf or tennis, and I don't have time for golf now, but maybe one day.
Yeah. But I think because we were witness and part of it, it's such a great way to sell the business and buy the business. We definitely, I'm sure we wouldn't just walk away someday. I think
you can see that it's possible. You can see that it's possible. And the thing is, if you were to each say one piece of advice to a colleague that has their interior design firm and would intend and love to sell it someday, what would you say to them to do to keep aware of this or keep sure of that? In order so that they have a sellable business as opposed to a business that would have no value as a sellable business.
Well, I mean, I think it's basically what we talked about in the beginning, whereas I think you have to be an owner who's willing to let down, somewhat of your ego, which is a lot of it, grooming someone to really be your equal versus your subordinate or your assistant or everything that, and keeping them involved with the client, being client facing, taking them on appointments, and sometimes you can't charge, if you're charging by the hour. There are many times where, if we are, even just because we want our assistants to know exactly what's going on because it helps us in the end, we sometimes, don't bill them out unless it's necessary, if they're helping us measure or whatever. Okay. But I think you have to
that's you investing in your business as opposed to that's not a project expense is what you're describing there, right?
Exactly. Yes. And I think, I think it's just, especially once you are into that phase, it also even just makes running a business even easier if you do keep your, I think, assistants more client facing, if you can. Just like Kirsten said, even if you're maybe not ready to sell it or you're ready to, retire, it does make, going on vacation a lot easier, having children a lot easier.
Yes.
They aren't having a heart attack if you're on maternity leave, or things like that. So
they see the trust that you have in your team because they've witnessed it firsthand. And so they don't feel left out and like, why is he or she handling this instead of you?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when Kimberly came to work for me, I had her in the car with me for 3 years straight on every appointment I went on. 3 years. My husband said to me after 6 months, "What are you doing?" Like, what are you doing? We're paying her to be your wingman? Like, you're kidding me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I said, no, we're paying her to teach her to be me. You know, and she is now. She is, she learns so much more than she would have if I was trying to, scramble it in between appointments at the showroom or something like that. And, more than anything for me, I was teaching her the way I handle my clients and the way I interact with them and the way that we do the window works way. And in addition to teaching her actually physically designing and measuring window treatments. More important to me was teaching her, this is how I have my relationships and this is how I built my business with these people. And you're going to see them over and over again because they're repeat clients. And so, so it's good. So to not have that fear as the principle of investing in that person and letting that person have, a presence. And like you said in the beginning, Penny delegated. Now, of course, you have to, wait for the right person. You don't just do this to every single person that walks through the door.
Right.
Yeah. I waited a long time for Kimberly to walk through my door. But when she did, I recognized her.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. That's it. The very first night I interviewed her, and had no idea. I thought I was interviewing her for the showroom coordinator position. And I came home and I said to my husband, he said, "How'd the interview go?" And I said, "I found the person I can teach to be me." And he was like, "Yeah." I said, "I found her." I said, "So I want her." And he goes, "Okay, so she's going to be in the show." I'm like, No. We have to hire somebody else for that still. That position's still open, actually. Now we have another one. So it's great. I love it. I love that lesson. Do you have something you want to share with that, Kirsten?
No.
Okay.
I was just saying that, now you have more time for podcasting.
Yeah. No. Right. Okay. Well, very, very interesting show, ladies. And I will say to you that I actually am very grateful to you that you were honest in the figures and sharing that, because the conversation would have been valuable for our peers listening. Irregardless, that's not a word. Regardless. Did you know that that's not a word? Irregardless. It doesn't mean anything.
I remind me of an old boyfriend who said he would never date somebody who said supposedly instead of supposedly, that kind of thing.
Right. And it's so funny because I hear it every time I say it wrong. And it's like, hello, wake up, smell the coffee. Okay. So what I was saying is that the things that you shared and the lessons that you discussed and the process of buying this business would have been valuable regardless if you had shared the purchase information. But I think it really gave weight to the conversation and really helped us to understand what exactly the decision was on the table and how big of a decision it was. And therefore, it also gives weight to the value of us being diligent in running a productive, efficient business, because it can be recognized as a sellable entity someday if you really lock it down. So good for you, ladies. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
All right, so much good stuff here from Kirsten and Laura, right? First is the obvious, that they learned to run a tight ship from Penny. And more importantly, I like that they recognized that it was her processes and her business acumen that contributed to the success of the firm. So they were very well aware that they were not just purchasing a client base, which they were, but they were also purchasing a way of doing business and the systems that she had set up. So important. Okay. I also like that we learned the value in making your team visible to your clients and including them in the process. Now, I know that this is not for everyone. I know that I have interviewed successful designers that are always the face of the firm to their client. So I'm not saying that this is the only way to do this, that this is a must do, like I say about having systems in place and so forth. No, I'm just suggesting that if you do introduce your team to the client, that if they do see and know them and see your confidence in them, then it does set you up for some pretty nice things. For example, when you're on vacation, clients can accept your absence when they understand that the world at your firm is not at a standstill because you're not there. So it's one thing to tell them that things are moving along when you're not there, but when they can visualize and they have trust and faith in the people that you say are doing the things, it's easier for them, okay? And then, of course, is the topic of selling your business. I realize many of you are actually in the beginning stages of your your business, but there will come a day when you may want to move on. You may simply want to change careers. You may, eventually retire, let's just say. And how about $1 million payout over the prospect of just putting the close sign up? Just saying, things to talk about. All right. I also love the sales talk. Kirsten mentioned the power of no and of the power of silence after the no. She also talked about how she learned from Fred Burns, who has been on the show, I think it's 5 times now. So if you are new to the show, go into wherever you're searching my show, whether it's in my website, luannniagara.com, or it's on iTunes. You search Fred Burns' name and you're going to come up with all those shows, okay? But the thing is that she learned from Fred Burns that objections are good. They are not a bad thing, right? And the thing is, when I was listening to the show in edits, I was wondering if I made my example that I had in my showroom clear to you. So I just wanted to, straighten that out a little bit. What actually happened in my showroom is that my customer did not give me an objection. Okay. So if you remember the story, so she comes in, we chit chat. She's like, oh, I just want to do this one thing. And I give her, it tells me, oh, I think this is the product I want. I have it in another room. You did it there. I want it there. So this is not a selling process. This is not a showing a process. This is like, this is what I want. Just give it to me. And when I gave her the price, she went from everything is fine to, okay, I'll talk to you next week. You see, she did not give me the objection. And that's the gift in there. When you get the objection, in that moment, she would have said, oh, I thought this was going to be easy. I didn't think this was going to be that much money. Oh, I might have to think about this. You see, that would have been the gift, okay? And that's the point, that the objection is the gift, because that gives you the opportunity to regroup and to refocus and to say, oh, okay, well, what price point did you want to be in, or what type of product did you think, why is this too much money? What was your budget? So that's the thing. That was the lesson in there. And my example wasn't such a great one because my client didn't give me an objection. The thing is, I'm older than dirt, and I've been doing this a really long time. So I don't always need somebody to give me the objection to actually understand that there's an objection there. I know when she went from hot to cold that something was lost. Okay. And for me, rather than wonder about it, rather than let the opportunity go by, rather than let her walk out and maybe take her at her word and follow up with her the following week, I just went right down the middle and I just said, what happened? Is that product, is that price higher than you want it to go? And I recognize that that's not so easy to do. It comes with experience, but the point is, what I always want to say to you is try it. Try it on. It's like riding a bike. The first couple of times you're going to feel, unsteady on the wheels, right? But then next thing you know, you're riding around the block, and the next thing you know, you're like having an awesome time. So learn these little things about sales when they come up, when you have the opportunity to try them out. You have nothing to lose, okay? So in my situation, I literally said, if she just looks at me and says, no, why did you ask me that? I really just want to wait till next week. What would have been the harm? I would have said, okay, fine, right? So you must learn sales, whether you learn it from me, you learn it from Fred Burns, you learn it from Nancy Ganskaufer, you learn it from Stephanie Chung. These are all business coaches that I've had on the show that all specialize and teach sales. It is as important to learning how to do space planning, how to do, combine colors and fabrics and textures to the success of your business. So I don't care who you learn it from. Just make sure you learn it. All right. And I'll just, do a shameless segue here. Speaking of sales training, I will be at the International Window Coverings Expo in Tampa this March 27, 28. And I'm teaching a super session on high ticket sales. What a coincidence. So come down to Tampa. Join us. We have so many amazing people leading seminars there. We have Jana Platina Phipps. We have Michelle Williams. We have Deb Barrett. We have Madeline McRae. We have the guys from Madcap Cottage, Jason Oliver Nixon and John Lucky doing the keynote address. We'll all be there working together to help you build a successful business. All right. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for all of your well wishes on the 300th episode last week. Thank you for coming to the party last week. Thank you to Lefroy Brooks for hosting it one more time. A big thank you to them. And of course, a huge thank you to both Kravit and My Doma Studio, our show sponsors that make everything possible. All righty. I want to know, what will you do today to make a difference in your business? Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.